Music is too easy to create and too easy to consume. Or so says Rick Beato. Now, of course, as many other music YouTubers, have sort of cottoned on and made reply videos, reaction videos, just overall thought videos regarding the two videos that Rick Beato released over the past 2 or so weeks. The first one titled The Real Reason Why Music is Getting Worse, and the second one titled I Know You're Angry, So Am I. I've watched a handful or so of the sort of reply videos and the videos sort of offering just general perspective, and I think a lot of them have been really good. A lot of them have been quite critical and fairly balanced towards Rick Beato's arguments that he's making in his thesi. I don't know what the plural is, but yeah, you know what I mean. And of course, the big one being from Anthony Fantano. And I guess this is a good point to let you know that I am a subscriber to both Rick Beato and Anthony Fantano. I enjoy both of their works. They've both done some really great stuff to build the online music community. They've each released some fantastic, amazing, insightful interviews and bits of almost sort of like music historian work. I think we'll be able to look back at each of these creators, in 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years, and they'll each have a body of work, I think, that will be very well respected within sort of the music historian sphere, particularly when it comes to the interviews that they've each done. But I think that's beside the point. I think what I really wanted to touch on in this video was mostly Rick Beato's thesis and his arguments. So with his first argument, music is too easy to produce, record and release. The first half of that video, where he's making comparisons and he's going through a very quick play-by-play of, the past almost 100 years, sort of 80 to 100 years of recorded music history. He skips through quite a lot, but does touch on some pretty good talking points, I think. And definitely, comparatively, things are easier now. That is no question. Whether because it's easier, there's worse music because of that, I don't necessarily agree. I think there's always been terrible music. There's always been, or quote unquote, this is all very subjective, but there's always been, people who have lived their lives thinking, or with the belief that they are performers, that they are good at performing, but due to the technology restraints or financial restraints, they haven't been able to record their performances, their music. And I think that's actually a shame. I think that, there's potentially millions, if not billions, of songs lost to time because these songs weren't able to be recorded in some fashion. Whether that's lyrics on a page, notes on a music sheet, or sound waves recorded to some sort of medium, whether it's wax cylinder or digital ones and zeros. I do really think that is a shame. Most of those millions probably would have been subjectively terrible, and I think with technology being the way it is, being so easily operated to be able to record yourself, you know, even if it's just picking up a phone and, you know, there's the camera app or whatever it is, you know, to capture that. I think that is a beautiful thing for the masses. I think it is a beautiful thing for people that only have a phone, that can only, even if it's, you know, not a smartphone, it's a dumb phone, and a lot of the dumb phones still have that ability to record. And I think for the people that are of the lowest socio-economical, you know, situations, that their life is looking pretty bleak, it's looking like, you know, there's very little opportunity to achieve, yet they could still find some way to achieve something, whether it's just sitting around and they've got a lyric idea that they need to get out, they need to sing, and then they can post it and potentially that gets picked up. You know, I think that is a beautiful thing. And that's something that I personally see on a week-to-week basis. I, outside of this room, work as a musician and producer, and majority of my clientele are people of the lowest socio-economical group and are also people living with disabilities. And I think, you know, not long ago, it was almost a requirement socially that these people, you know, were kind of almost expected that they wouldn't achieve anything in life. And thankfully, you know, living in a first world country that has amazing services, human services, you know, here in Australia, we've got the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which allows these people to access services like the ones that I'm a part of, and gives them a purpose, gives them an outlook, gives them a positivity, gives them, you know, the opportunity to work with someone that values their point of view, their creativity, their experiences, and can help them deliver that in a way that is of a high quality, that is of something that is of value. And the way that I do that is using things like, you know, in the video, Rick goes on and sort of, you know, chastises, or at least kind of slyly makes fun of people that use things like autotune and virtual instruments like Superior Drummer, and, you know, MIDI chord packs and amp modelers and that sort of thing. And of course, I think, you know, during this time, he is more or less talking about the people that are successful in music. And I think that's maybe a point that kind of goes a little bit unsaid in the video, that, you know, it should be, I feel the point that Rick kind of misses is that it kind of should be a top down, but he doesn't say that, which kind of disturbed me a little bit, because as I said, you know, from a week to week basis, I get to see the joy that these technologies bring to a group of people that without them, you know, maybe they would have found it in something else, cooking, visual arts, poetry, I don't know. But yeah, there's one particular person that I work with where he does do visual arts, and he loves these visual arts. He even writes stories. You know, he's got this whole narrative that he's built, but he's also a lyric writer, and we turn his lyrics into full-fledged songs. And it is something that, you know, he's got hundreds of songs just waiting for the right time to be made. And so far with him, I've been able to help him achieve his goals of being a legitimate songwriter. And I think, we're up to maybe 15 or 16 songs over the course of 2.5 years, something like that. So yeah, that was a big part of the argument that I think, again, it's kind of left unsaid, but that is what disturbed me a little bit, is that, Rick didn't really seem to delve, or at least he wasn't, it didn't seem he was too direct with the audience that he was kind of attacking. So yeah, that was really the first point of, that sort of creative dependency on technology, is producing terrible music. And yeah, for my guys, for the people that I support, they're specifically not dependent on the technology. They're actually dependent on me knowing how to use that technology and knowing how to use it efficiently, because that's a big thing as well. The group that I work with, we don't have the financial capability to have a drum kit and to mic an entire drum kit and to, spend hours and hours teaching someone how to sing perfectly, or to teaching someone how to play amazing chord progressions. We have a very small amount of time to help these people achieve something and get the positive energy of just achieving something. So yeah, that was a big part that I wouldn't say, I didn't feel necessarily directly attacked by it, but yeah, it was just a point that was missed in the video, or at least breezed over quite generally. Then yeah, there was a big part of the homogenization of music. I don't think that this is the technology's fault or the developers of the technology's fault. I think this is just the fault of the musicians in charge of the production, or the producers or the recording engineers that are in charge of the production. It's their choice to use the same amp modeler that everyone else is, or the same snare drum sample that everyone else is. That's not technology's fault. That is the choice of the people making the music and using that technology. Like, again, I use amp modelers for all of the projects that I am working on currently with this specific group of people. But I'm not using, whatever name the most popular amp modeler. I'm using ones that aren't. I'm using, the free technologies that I can find, or the cheapest ones that I can find that fit the budget, that fit the style that the client wants to go with. And because of that, I'm not getting the same sounds that everyone is. And then there's the point which is, harder to find real exceptional things. I don't think it is. I don't think it actually is harder to find real exceptional things. I think it's actually easier to find real exceptional things. I think it just comes down to the listener's laziness and the willingness to find exceptional things. It is super easy just to open up, insert streaming service here, and go to the top 20 playlist or go to the For You playlist. That is very easy, but it's just like that one little step to go to a playlist that you wouldn't necessarily listen to, and you will find those exceptional things that are different and new to, or using, things like incognito mode on YouTube, and so that, your algorithm isn't throwing the things at you that it thinks you are going to like. There's ways around it, and the technology available, makes that possible. It's not like we're in some totalitarian state or authoritarian state where, you know, everything is limited. We have unlimited possibility almost, and it just comes down to the listener's laziness. So I don't really subscribe to that. And then he also mentions, you know, the email that he received where, you know, he had a viewer of his writing in that the viewer had believed that they'd written this amazing song, and because of the viewer's lack of music knowledge or music theory knowledge and production knowledge, that they used AI to at least get that song, get that creative idea out of their head and into the real world, so it is something that is tangible that they can then show someone, you know, that they weren't crazy, that they, you know, had a real creative idea to share. And I think, again, this really proves the point wrong. You know, this is innovation. This is someone with a creative idea that expresses that, you know, that they express that they know nothing about music, but obviously had a huge urge to make something. And I think that's how we kind of all start as well, you know. For me, the first instrument that I learnt to play was guitar, and it's because, like, that was the first thing in my life where I had this urge, you know, I got lessons, and as soon as I started really getting those lessons and delving into it, I just had this urge to play all the time. And I think as I've gotten older and, you know, life gets in the way, the less friction I have to get an idea down, recorded, you know, is the best thing that I can do for my creativity. And I think that's all that person who sent Rick the email was trying to get across. Like, there's so much friction in learning how to play an instrument and then going that step further and learning how to write a song, and then going that step further and learning how to record that song. You know, there's so much involved there. So for this person to just be able to use an AI tool, get the song, you know, to maybe even 60, even 40% of what it may have been if all that time went through, you know, I think that is a beautiful thing that that person got to get that creative idea out of their head and into the world. So yeah, and this point as well, you know, kind of makes fun of that, this person, you know, his viewer using AI to achieve something, you know, it's a bit sad, I think. I think that outlook is a bit of a sad outlook. And yeah, I'm a very positive and optimistic person. And yeah, as a creative person myself, you know, I can't think of never creating, whether it's music or, you know, I like photography. I've recently enjoyed drawing, which I never really had before, or even as just cooking, you know, or whatever, gardening. You know, there's creative work everywhere you look, whether it's for monetary gain or just personal mental health or spiritual gain. You know, there's something beautiful there. And yeah, I think for this person, you know, Rick's viewer, to be able to achieve that for themselves, I think is super beautiful, and yeah, shouldn't be made fun of just because they used AI to achieve it. Rick then goes on to mention, you know, how in the past, in his youth, he would go to record stores and, you know, would use his hard-earned money working at a supermarket to purchase the records that he truly wanted to listen to, and would listen to them over and over again. And, you know, I can definitely relate to that. I can remember going and buying CDs. That's my era. Going and buying CDs and purchasing the ones that I really wanted to, yeah, using birthday money or pocket money or whatever it was at the time. And look, there definitely was or at least for me, there's definitely a nostalgic value for that. However, this is the point where, you know, sort of Rick then goes on to say about like streaming, how it's so easy just to skip a song, you know, instead of having to listen to it, and, you know, may or may not find something interesting in it. But I think skipping a song is the exact same as going to a record store and, you know, the record store is yay big, you know, it's huge, and there is every genre available, at least in this day and age, and, you know, everything's laid out in these massive racks of product, and you're not going through every bank of product in every genre, in every era that's available there. You're going to what looks interesting or what you already know you're going to enjoy. And so that's already skipping over a lot. So yeah, I think the whole idea of, you know, music is too easy to consume because of streaming, you know, I don't think it's too easy. I think it's easier. Obviously, it's easier than ever. And the control is easier than ever, of course. But again, you know, we've always had that control to choose what we purchase. Again, we're not living in an authoritarian state where we're being made to listen to the radio. We're being made to listen to, you know, this selection of music that has only been made available to us. You know, we've always had that choice of purchasing, whether it's, you know, mail order from out of a catalog, whether it's from a local store, whether it's, I mean, this day and age, online. I think one of the last CDs that I purchased was a CD from a band in Russia, and I would have never have found that band if it wasn't for the internet, if it wasn't for Bandcamp, if it wasn't for, you know, me going out of my way to look for it as well. Again, I think it just comes down to the consumer really for that point. And yeah, he goes on to sort of say, you know, because of all this, you know, it's devaluing music. And I think particularly for the kids, you know, that's kind of his main point there. He also makes a point on, you know, how there is just so much music being released at this point in time. You know, there's so much music being released, and the most there ever has been. But I think if the kids devalued music so much, why is there still so much music being released? Why are people still releasing music for people to hear? You know, it's one thing to write a song and record it and be happy with that you've done that as a creative pursuit, but then to release it. And particularly, yeah, I mean, of course, the whole SoundCloud rapping scene is flooded with young people, you know, under 25s, under 20s doing that, under 18s doing that, you know. So I don't, this whole thing of, yeah, kids devaluing music, I think it's not that kids devalue music, it's that the kids are valuing music in a different way to how Rick values music, or valued it back, you know, in his youth. And sure, you know, the way that the kids are consuming music these days through all the short form content, platforms, social media, you know, it makes sense that they're valuing it in a different way. But I don't think it means as less. I think, sure, it's being devalued maybe monetarily, but I don't think it means as less. I think it still means a lot to the kids to have music. Otherwise, they wouldn't be connecting with it. They wouldn't be connecting with music through TikTok, through YouTube Shorts, through, you know, any of the short form content platforms if they didn't enjoy it. You know, the fact that all of those rap artists, the new rap artists, the little whoever's are amassing huge audiences for their live shows. I think that, that really says a lot of how much music truly means to the kids. Because, yeah, it's one thing to watch a 60-second video on TikTok, but then it's another thing to then purchase the ticket, potentially having to purchase, accommodation, or travel expenses, and everything else that goes in it. They're buying merch. Like, sure, merch sales are down, but they're still buying it, or they're making their own in using AI, which sure, that's not a monetary gain to the artist, and that really sucks. But doesn't that show dedication? Doesn't that show meaning? Doesn't that show value? So I don't think it's necessarily that kids are devaluing music. I think they just value it in a completely different way. And why shouldn't they? Yeah, why shouldn't they? Then, of course, in the follow-up video, we get the ideas of music. Interest in music has waned over time, and I think the whole Google Trends thing was definitely misguided. I think, Anthony Fantano made a really good point here that, people aren't using Google to search music. They're using Apple Music, they're using Spotify, they're using YouTube to search music, and they're not searching music. They're searching, even the older generations, they're searching AC/DC, they're searching, top rock hits of 1980s. They're searching, have a look at, sort of Spotify's decades playlists. They're doing that. It's more specific than just music. It is the specific style, the vibe, the emotion that people are looking for. And sure, it comes in the form of, pretty mundane titled playlists, but that's what people want. That's what consumers want. And yeah, I think the point on this of, the Google Trends point, I think that fell very short, in my opinion. And then he kind of finishes off with, sort of popular music is declining. Sure. But why does it matter? Why does it matter that popular music is declining? I personally don't think that it matters. I think, again, from my point, I think that the term popular music is so broad at this point in time. And, it's always been fairly broad. The fact that a band like Nirvana went from this, very noisy underground punk band to a popular rock band and being called, sellouts. Even something like Outkast, a hip-hop duo like Outkast going from literally writing music in trap houses to being one of the largest and most revered hip-hop groups. I also think that, again, it just comes back to the listeners, the consumers, and what they want. I think in this instance, it would have been more interesting to look at demographics. Or at least it would have been more interesting if there was more time invested in research, I think, in this particular point. Because, it would actually be interesting to see what different demographics are truly listening to, whether it is popular music. Because I don't think it is. I think, there's obviously the ridiculous amount of money that is thrown at the marketing, from the major labels at their biggest clients. And that's always going to win out, mostly for the short term for a lot of artists, but other than, maybe Billie Eilish or Taylor Swift or, these sorts of artists that have really connected very deeply with their audience. And that is where, some of the more mundane or less interesting music is really going to rip through and take hold. Whereas I think there will always be certain artists that, sort of are doing things differently, that do break through, that are doing things maybe independently as well, like Tyler, the Creator, I think is, one that really comes to mind, independent artist from what I understand, that is huge. What he's being able to do, particularly like with the festival that he organizes, that he financially is invested in, that is, a huge thing. And I think at this point in time, consider him a popular artist, and he is, really releasing some very interesting stuff, particularly over the past sort of 2 album cycles. So I would say that, popular music is declining, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it matters. I wouldn't say that it matters that popular music is declining. I guess, just to finish off, with a few points regarding Fantano's video reply to Rick Beato. Fantano definitely got a little bit heated, and again, I think some of his points were definitely as quick to judge as Beato's points were. But I think definitely the idea that, music is always changing, but it's not necessarily getting worse. That's, I think, a big part that Fantano got right. It is constantly changing. It is not necessarily getting worse. And it's always going to be subjective as well. Just driving in the car today with the wife and kids, it was just going to be a real quick drive. I didn't want to, waste time searching through Spotify for, the right playlist or the right couple of, 3 to 5 songs for a very quick drive. So I just put on something really quickly, just a quick lo-fi cover that I knew would then go on to play a few songs of that similar ilk. And even though it was very low, kind of a bit more in the background as everyone was chit-chatting, conversing in the car on the ride to the shops. My wife still made a point of being like, I don't understand why you like this, and it's pretty it's pretty boring sort of stuff. And that's fine. It is really just very subjective, and it's stuff that even I don't necessarily like. It's not my go-to, but it's something that I like occasionally, and that I thought would just be a nice sort of background playlist for that drive. So just to make a long point short, the idea of art itself being subjective, I think, is a really big point. One last point, and this is something which I haven't seen anyone really comment on or suggest, is that from both Rick's point of view and Fantano's point of view, they were each going at it with music as being an audio medium only, and not considering music videos and how a music video can take a pretty mediocre song and transform it into a real interesting, beautiful piece of art. Sometimes a song needs that. Sometimes a song actually needs a visual to go along with it to convey how good of a song it is. Sometimes it's very easy to listen to a song, whether it's intentional or not, whether you are in the car and listening to the radio, or whether it is intentionally you're going to it, again, on Spotify, or purchasing a record or a CD of it, physical media. And sitting down and listening to it intentionally, with intention to listen to it. I think sometimes some songs just suck by themselves and they need that visual. And sometimes it works the other way. Sometimes the music video takes away from the song the meaning, the purpose, the emotion. Sometimes it just needs to be those sound waves hitting your ears and your brain doing the things that it does to interpretate or extrapolate from that auditory experience. But yeah, that's a point that I haven't seen, and I think there is a big part of the art in that, in the fact that sometimes the art isn't just the song, sometimes it is the music video as well. You know, Rick definitely mentions looking through, you know, the cover art and the liner notes and the credits and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of touches on it a little bit there. And I will admit, you know, that there's absolutely some albums that I think you need to get the vinyl record version of, particularly something like Tusk from Fleetwood Mac, because yeah, I've got that back there in the collection, and you open that up and it is this amazing collage of different artworks, and it just keeps going. You pull out a sleeve and there's more artworks, and yeah, so I definitely agree with that point, but I think there is a massive point being missed when it comes to how a song is actually delivered and experienced, and how a music video can take, yeah, something that might be a mediocre or a typical or a mundane or a terrible song and actually make it quite interesting. So yeah, that I think is my final point. That is, you know, to be honest, I'm kind of making this video to hop on the trend, but yeah, there was just something there that grinded my gears, that hit a soft spot for me, and that I kind of wanted to get off my chest, but also I think this idea of just getting the thoughts out of my head and saying them out loud to make sure that I wasn't crazy. So yeah, I guess anyone who has followed along, that's watched this video, that's listened to me ramble on, let me know, what are your thoughts? Have you watched the 2 videos from Rick? Have you watched the video from Anthony Fantano? Have you watched any of the other takes? I've watched a few of them that have been quite interesting. Some expected, some kind of unexpected points in other people's thoughts. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about all this technology making music worse, it being too easy to consume music, and let me know, what do you guys think of my takes? Were they valid? Were they of interest? Did you learn something? I kind of hope you did. I definitely learned a lot throughout this process of ruminating on these thoughts, so yeah, hope you did as well. Anyway, this is a very different video for me, so I don't really know how to end it, but I guess, yeah, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, let me know if you want more of these long form ramblings of a music nerd, and if not, you won't see him in the next one. If you do, you'll see me in the next one.